to the internet bullying.
And you had a statement for us?
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, and the other important thing that they wanted to communicate, and then I'll turn that over to Stephen, is that statements have been attributed sometimes to the family online or other places, and they haven't made any recent statements, and they want to make sure that it's clear that in the future, if there are any statements being made, that they'll be made through our office. So if it'll either come directly from the Rusiks, and you'll see one of us next to them, or it'll come from one of the three of us that's here today. Other statements that are attributed to them are false, and they wanted to make sure that the public was aware of that. Stephen?
Gotcha. The other thing the family wanted to discuss was the Lifetime movie that's coming out here on the 25th. We had received notice of that on August 21st. The way we received notice was people had released an online article about it, and the family brought it to our attention. They wanted us to reach out to be able to discuss with them the portrayals of Shanann, the girls, potentially the family, potentially Chris. So we reached out via an online portal for Lifetime on the 23rd of August last year. We didn't hear anything back for quite a while until October 24th. We had someone reach out to us that was part of the production company making the documentary that was set to follow the Lifetime movie. He had informed us at that point the movie had been predominantly made. And so the family wanted to share that they're aware that in a lot of these situations when biopics are made, biographies are made, the people making it, the production crew, reaches out to the family to get an understanding of how that person might have been when they were still alive, or even people who might still be around, like Chris, who they really were. For example, I know Marianne Plunkett was the woman who portrayed the Joanne Rogers in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Fred Rogers biopic that just came out. Eddie Redmayne spoke with Stephen Hawking prior to portraying him in A Theory of Everything. It's not unusual to see that, but the family had to find out after the fact that the production had gone through without them any sort of input. They have been seeing commercials for it. I believe it's called Chris Watts, Confessions of a Killer. And it's been hard for them primarily because they've been seeing those depictions, those advertisements during the holiday season. And they want people to know that, at least from the advertising that they've seen, the trailers that they've seen, the pictures that they've seen, that's not an accurate portrayal of their daughter, of their grandchildren, or even of Chris Watts himself. The other thing that the family wanted to let everybody know about, especially following our last press conference that we had with Frank, is that after that press conference, we had some people reach out to us from an organization referred to as the Honor Network. That's HONR Network. It's an organization, nonprofit, that advocates for the survivors and victims of mass casualty situations. The founder of that, Lenny Posner's son, Noah Posner, if people are not aware, Noah Posner was the youngest victim of the Sandy Hook elementary shooting. They reached out to us following the press conference and offered us a lot of help with the online harassment, with advocating for the family. And so the family wanted to update people that the Honor Network has been immensely and immeasurably helpful when it comes to online bullying and harassment. Family also wanted to talk about some of the online retailing that has been going on. There's people out there making t-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, and stuff like that. Remember the Watts, that bear Shanann's name, Bella's name, Nico's name, Celeste's name. They are not affiliated at all with that. They are not making a profit off of any of that, and they would encourage people to not endorse or participate in that kind of behavior.
All right, thanks, Stephen. All right, I'm going to finish it up with just a couple miscellaneous topics that the family asked us to discuss real quick. There's been a lot of information out there on social media that the family profited from different television appearances and stuff like that, and are profiting from, their losses, and that couldn't be further from the truth. For instance, they did not profit from being on Dr. Phil or ABC's 2020, so we just wanted to go on the record and let everybody know that they're not profiting from this. Also, we wanted everybody to know that the family has donated all the personal effects from Shanann, Bella, and Celeste to different charities, and so people were able to, use their their personal items and hopefully to better somebody else's life. And so anyway, they wanted us to share that with everybody. Next, the family has asked us to engage in discussions and start looking into a new law that would either criminalize or allow for civil penalties in the event that people of mass tragedies and stuff like that, the deceased are defamed. And so we've started to reach out to some different contacts and stuff like that. And so we'll keep the news media informed as that progresses. But they did want us to know that. And then finally they asked us to close with, it's time to let the case rest. The Weld County DA's office, they did an amazing job along with law enforcement. The family couldn't be more thankful for the efforts of these individuals. And they just wanted everybody it's time to move on. And Mr. Watts was brought to justice, and so they're very pleased with that result. And they're just asking that everybody move on, and they would like to thank everybody for their time today, for coming out to listen to the statement. And now we're ready to open it up to any questions that you all may have.
The family wants to move on. Are they finding that difficult with the fact that this movie is coming out?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that the movie coming out makes it difficult, and especially as Stephen pointed out earlier, the commercials for the movie that were running all during the holiday season, we received a text one morning right before Christmas saying, "This is what I woke up to this morning." So it's difficult for them, and that does make it harder to move on.
Stephen, I know that you said that it took several months for them to even find out that this movie was being made. Did Lifetime consult with them at all? Did the family provide pictures or documents or anything, any interviews to the movie, or was this completely, do they have no part of this?
They have no part in it. It's a bit nuanced. There are two different production crews, from our understanding, working with Lifetime. One would be the movie itself coming out on the 25th. Following that, there will be a sort of in the real life of these people kind of thing where they have friends of the various people associated with the case that are talking to production crew on that. The one that predominantly made the movie itself did not reach out. The actors and actresses did not reach out. Lifetime itself as a parent company did not reach out. We did not discover it was being made until everybody else did on August 21st, and we did not discover that it had already been completed in production until after it was too late.
Now that it's been completed, has Lifetime reached out to you guys or the family to review the movie before it actually hits the TV?
No, and that's something I know that Tom has talked about it a lot in the past, that the family does get re-victimized in a lot of these situations, and once again, really big shout out to the law enforcement who were involved in this case. Weld County DA, Frederick Police Department, Colorado Bureau of Investigation. At almost every stage, they were very kind and considerate in allowing the family to view some of this material prior to it being released to the public at large. That has not been a sentiment shared by Lifetime.
Would the family go as far as asking people to not watch this?
Honestly, I would say yes. I mean, the problem with it is that if people are wanting to watch it in order to see an accurate depiction of their daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren's lives, they need to look elsewhere.
Do they feel like this production company, Lifetime, Hollywood as a whole, is profiting off of what happened to them?
To a certain extent, yeah.
I think so, that they've expressed that they're concerned about people in general finding reasons to look for profit and find profit when this is so tragic for them and so difficult for them to get through.
But one of the things sort of to highlight, though, is that, I mean, there are two sides to that coin. There are people like Lifetime in this situation who are out there making it, not consulting with the family, not being able to get those accurate representations. There have been other people who have reached out. We're not at liberty to discuss it, but there are other people who have reached out that have worked closely with the family in producing some of these documentaries. And we are eternally grateful, the family is eternally grateful to be able to have a voice in how their daughter and how their grandchildren are depicted.
There could be other documentaries coming out.
There might be.
I guess
We're not at liberty to say.
Sure.
I guess one of the big questions here is, we started off with harassment. We obviously know this is a difficult time for the family now that this movie is going to be premiering. Has the harassment increased? Is it getting any worse than the last time we talked about this?
So if you're referring to the last time we talked about this as when we had that press conference with Frank, No, thankfully, once again, the Honor Network, and I would encourage everybody to look out for what the Honor Network is. I had never heard about it. I don't know if anybody else in the firm had ever heard about it. Frank and Sandy definitely had not. But they are an amazing organization. They do an absolutely stupendous job of scrubbing the internet, getting rid of a lot of this harassment, and they do both a deep dive helping out the victims in these kinds of cases, as well as ongoing remediation to help them not only just assist them in getting some of this material removed from online, but in healing.
When we talk about this stuff going on the internet, is it threats? What is it that people are saying?
It's a lot of different things. I think the parts that disturb the family a lot, and I know Tom was mentioning it earlier, people who are, or Brad also mentioned earlier, are people who are armchair detectives going out there trying to find scraps of evidence, say that, oh, that, Chris really wasn't the killer, it was X, or, his original confession was the true confession and Shanann did have a hand in this, or there's some sort of conspiracy going on to it. That kind of stuff bothers them a lot, but there have been a number of instances of people reaching out to them, threatening them anonymously. Not even just them, we know that a lot of people associated even tangentially with the family or the house or law enforcement have undergone a lot of this harassment as well. It's multifaceted and it is complex, and it's nice to have organizations that are out there who are able to tackle that in a way that 10, 20 years ago we would never have had.
Are they afraid that once this movie premieres, it's going to resurrect some of that harassment that they've experienced in the past?
They are. They're concerned about it, that could continue to happen. And to your other question, I think certainly the most hurtful things, and Stephen mentioned them, are anything where they implicate Shanann and refer back to the original confession and talk about the fact that she was somehow involved in this and blaming the victim and somehow asserting that she had something to do with the murder of her children. Clearly that's the most offensive thing to the family and upsets them.
And along with the discussion we had with them this afternoon, even they were telling us that what's hurtful is when they're actually showing, Shanann being strangled, actually in the movies, and showing the girls being hauled out to the oil site and stuff like that. So it's stuff like that. It's just hard to watch, and anyway, that's very, very hurtful. So
I'm sure you guys have been in contact with the family regarding this. Could you describe what state they were in when you told them this movie's premiering and it's just weeks away?
They actually were the ones who brought it to our attention. They had seen the People article, and I imagine it was brought to their attention even by somebody else that's a friend of theirs or a family friend, something like that. It's been more, at least from my personal perspective of it, more hurtful to see the actual depictions themselves. It's one thing to hear that there's going to be a depiction of your daughter being murdered and that it's going to air over and over and over again. You're going to see trailers for it over and over and over again. Than it is to actually see those things. And so it's very difficult for them. I mean, once again, when we talk about laying this case to rest, letting it be over, it's all instances of it. It's not just people making these movies. It's not just people issuing threats online. It's people talking about it pretty much in general. They haven't really had that opportunity that a lot of victims get to mourn, predominantly just because of the culture that we have right now. People hear about it all over the world now.
But could you describe the emotional state they were in when you discussed this? Was this anger? Was this hurt? Was this pain?
I would say both, anger and hurt, but would say that it leans more towards pain. That they, at least in conversations that I've had with both Frank and Sandy, have just indicated how horrible it is to relive that. And as I referred to earlier, the call that I had with them around Christmas, and they said, we woke up this morning and watched a depiction of our daughter being strangled, and it brings everything back up to the surface all over again. So.
As much as I hate to ask this, do you think they actually will end up watching it just out of curiosity to see how their family ended up being portrayed, or is it too graphic for them to actually sit down and watch?
I think they go back and forth on that. It'd be very difficult, even just referring on a personal basis, if something like this had happened to me, it'd be difficult not to watch it and not to see what exactly happened. It's unclear at this point. yes, they'll have access to it. They have the Lifetime channel. It's something that comes with a lot of major basic cable packages, but we are not sure at this point if they'll watch it. I mean, once again, they've seen the trailers, they've seen what the movie is predominantly going to portray, but obviously saying that you're going to see it, saying you're going to watch it, and actually sitting down and being able to stomach sitting through it are two different things.
Do we foresee legal action being taken after this movie airs?
I'd say it's unlikely. We've discussed it, but unfortunately in the United States there's a lot of protections for people in these kinds of situations, production companies in these situations you wouldn't see in places like the UK or Germany or France, where there is a lot more protection for people who are victims and who have biopics made about them.
Yeah. At this point, we don't anticipate engaging in any litigation over the Lifetime movie.
Could you talk a little bit more about the new law that you were mentioning before? What would it do?
Well, we're just trying to not allow these horrible people, quite frankly, out there that are just trying to, say these horrible things about these people that have been involved in these, horrible, evil acts against these families. And so we're not sure at this point whether or not there could be a criminal element to it, but we're certainly hoping at a minimum we can work with, there's different national organizations that are very much inclined to help maybe push forward with this, as well as, we're going to be looking at state representatives and stuff like that, reaching out to them. But we've just started to get involved in that, and the families ask us to look into it. So I think at this point, everything's on the table. We understand there's going to be some hurdles, along the way.
Yeah, to be clear, it's in the very initial stages. It's mostly been talk from us with our clients about it.
Yeah, it's a pretty common conception in the law that you cannot defame the dead. Obviously, different countries have different ways of handling that. That's the problem, is that people are out there defaming Shanann, defaming Bella, Celeste, and Nico, and the dead can't fight back.
I guess the one thing, what would you say as we wrap this up that you want people to take away from this news conference today that are watching?
To please reconsider if you're thinking about posting something, or if you see something like that, just not to engage with it. For example, the whatever it is, coffee mugs, T-shirts, or whatever that say Shanann on them, those aren't products that have anything to do with the family, and in some instances they're not done well. It's not tasteful, and it's hurtful to the family. So they just want people to not engage in any of that, and mainly to not engage in the continued sort of internet bullying and re-victimization that they feel has taken place.
And along with the fact, if there's any statements made through the family, somebody from our firm will be along there with them. And so if you're just reading stuff on the internet and stuff like that, it's more than likely not true. And so if you have questions whether or not something is authentic or not, please feel free to give our office a call and we'll let you know.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I do believe Shanann just had a birthday recently. Do you think this makes it even more difficult for the family, a birthday and then the movie launching in the same month, just weeks apart?
It is, and one of the blessed things about Facebook, and one of the things that's difficult for people who've gone through tragedies like this, is that social media reminds you of things like that. You posted this picture 2 years ago, do you want to reshare it? There's a birthday coming up for somebody that you love. For people who have gone through tragedies like this, there are almost constant reminders, and that's just one of them. One of the things I would say to sort of take away from this is that they as a family have felt predominantly powerless through this process. We, as their attorneys, and a lot of the people that care about them, the law enforcement agencies, the Honor Network, are just trying to give them back some of the power that they've lost through this process.
And for clarity, Chris wasn't consulted on the movie either, right?
From our understanding, no.
Can you clarify when Shanann's birthday, was it January 10th?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
I don't know either.
Okay, that's okay.
We know it was recent. We saw postings about it on Facebook, but not off the top of our heads.
I should ask too, would the family feel differently about this movie had they been given the option to give some input? Those scenes, those horrible scenes, those would still happen. Would they feel differently if they were more accurate?
So I know I mentioned it earlier, there have been people who have reached out that have shown the correct way of doing these things. When you involve victims and the people who knew victims best, it makes it a lot easier to make a portrayal of somebody. And so they have been happy and engaged when they're able to take apart and assert some more of that control and power over some of these depictions of their daughter and grandchildren. When something like this comes up and the power is completely taken away from them, it does hurt them and it does make them, to a certain extent, angry.
Anything that we've missed?
Not to
I
my
can't think
knowledge.
of
That's-
anything.
That's what the
I think
family
that's-
wanted to have shared.
Can you, see, we got your first name, could you give us?
Sure, I'm Tom Grant, Grant, and I'm a partner in the law firm Grant and Hoffman, so that's Hoffman.
And Hoffman, your
Yeah,
first
Brad
name?
Hoffman, HOFFMAN partner.
Thank you so much for having
All
us.
right,
Thank
thanks
you.
you guys for
Once again,
coming.
they wanted to express appreciation for you all coming
Yeah,
down.
they can't
Yep.
thank you guys enough.
Yep.
And are these microphones to keep, the little trinkets, right?